Welcome back to GTD, our NASCAR episode. We have a lot to talk about. It feels crazy. This is our first full season covering NASCAR, and we're already at the end. The championship race is this weekend. It's been one of the best seasons of our life. It's been incredible. The racing week in, week out, the drama week in and week out. I mean, we talked about Proctor's a few weeks ago, and he said sometimes this is more of a soap opera that acts like a sport than anything else. And I can't agree more with him. So yeah, just insane racing, but the insanity has not settled down because we had maybe one of the most insane endings to a race this year. Maybe not crazy move or close finish, but we didn't know anything till like 30 minutes later, and we'll get into that in a second. But Blaney won the race. Car came alive, had the best long-run car. We knew that going into the race. He had the best long-run car in practice. Came alive at the end. Raced with Elliott for a little bit, but then just really drove past him. And yeah, all that complaining he did about not getting his spots back because Kyle Busch is tired, just saying sayonara. Which I think they should have seen it. They should have seen the tire.
They should have aborted that restart. That should never have been a thing.
So no, they went racing. I'm okay with that. If you don't see the tire and you throw the green flag, you lose your spot. Whatever. But I think they should have seen the tire sooner. They have cameras everywhere, and they're listening to spotters. They should have seen the tire sooner.
The fact that the entire NBC broadcast booth can go, there's a missing tire before they're even close to the restart zone means that for me there is no excuse that restart was not aborted.
I think the caution should have been thrown before the green flag. However, I'm okay with them losing spots the green flag.
That's purely NASCAR's fault.
It was, but that's the least of the NASCAR concerns we have. Blaney won. We'll rate the burnout real quick. 0. He didn't do it burnout.
I gave it a 3 because I like the backwards victory lap. But while we're talking about Blaney, you mentioned that again, kind of was a super fast and long run car. That's what we've seen from him pretty much. I feels like the entirety of the playoffs. Yeah. I texted you before the race when it started when they were talking about like the storylines on the pace laps. I said it feels like every week it's Ryan Blaney qualified 37th, but on the 10-lap average, he was fastest by 18 seconds a lap. So we're excited to see if he can come through the field.
Exactly.
And it keeps working for Penske. So, I mean, if it ain't
very
broke,
similar
don't fix
year right now that Blaney had last year that he's having this year.
Yeah.
And it's eerily similar.
Right down to the Martinsville win in the discount tire car. It's a little freaky for sure. But Blaney had the best car. I think we can agree. Once it got to that long run, he was great. Drove incredibly, and it's getting lost in all the other stuff that we'll talk about here in a minute, but absolutely incredible drive from Ryan Blaney. Obviously, your eliminated drivers. Let's do the 3 non-problematic ones first. Kyle Larson, Denny Hamlin, and Chase Elliott all out. Larson and Elliott both with chances to win this race late, just didn't have the same car that Blaney did on the long run.
I think Larson had the most balanced car, and you could talk about him maybe having the best overall car, because if that final stretch of the race isn't so long and they do have a late caution and Elliott's on the front row, I think he wins in a short run. So you could argue that Elliott had maybe the better overall car, but he dominated a lot of the race, had the pit road penalty, and still drove back through the field. Then
was it a penalty or did they just mess up? I thought they
they just messed up.
Had to rescrew a lot.
Yeah, the left rear. They just messed up, or right rear. Sorry, but Alan Gustafson, who we've been crediting all year, was saying
he finally did a thing.
Right, the most bland guy, just follows the ordinary, doesn't try anything different, tries something different, and what did it do? It worked. He didn't win, so it didn't work perfectly, but
he got a lot better than he would have been.
It put him in the position that he was in at the end of the race, and it's just, Blaney's car turned into a rocket ship and he lost.
Yeah, he did my favorite strategy, though. I love short pitting so much.
And he's super short pitted. It wasn't even by a little bit. But they're betting on caution. If they got one, it worked out for him almost perfectly. So credit to Alan Gustafson there. We know we've been dogging on him a little bit for being bland and vanilla, but he did something today. But now let's just talk about it.
Yeah.
William Byron, Christopher Bell, battling for points, battling to get in the playoffs. Bell is a lap down. Most of the time, he's the first car lap down for most of that little run. And then Bubba Wallace gets passed by the leaders. Now he can get the 1 point he needs because Byron has a moving roadblock behind him and 2 Chevy drivers, Chastain and Dillon. So Bell really has to get past Bubba Wallace. And I'm going to say, Chevy, in trying to make sure Byron didn't win or didn't get past, put Bell in the position to pass Bubba Wallace because they clogged that track so bad that Bell actually caught up to Bubba Wallace and was in a position to pass him. Now, Bubba Wallace also had a tire going down, as he said.
To be fair, I think the I don't know if I'm just falling for his driving or whatever, but when you watch that car coming around, it looked like it was wobbling a lot. I don't know if he was doing this in there, but
I don't think he had a tire going down. I think both Toyota and Chevy played that ending. I mean, it was obvious. Bubba Wallace, even before he came on the radio saying he had a tire going down, like a good minute before, he was already starting to fall off the pace and got slower and slower.
Yeah, but the Wallace's crew chief didn't come on and say, "Do they know the deal?"
Yeah. The Chevy radio is definitely more suspicious.
Oh my god!
I will say that.
Austin Dillon's crew, which by the way, Austin Dillon's spotter, the same guy that was suspended at Richmond for going wreck him, is now on the radio going, "Does the one crew chief know the deal? Do they know we can't pass Byron?"
And then Chastain's radio going, "Stay side by side with the 3. Stay side by side with the 3. Don't pass Byron." He didn't say don't pass Byron, but it's pretty much what he said. But then the big move, last lap, Bell sends it hard in turn 3 just to get past Bubba Wallace. He does. He didn't know this because he's in the car. He didn't need to do that because he was going to pass Wallace anyways.
Yeah.
However, he does. Then he gets into the wall because that's what you do when you overdrive the corner. And here is what I'll say. He throttled when he got into the wall. Instead of driving off the wall and trying to throttle back up, he throttled and stuck to the wall. I'm very okay with NASCAR giving him this penalty and having Byron move on, because he throttled up so hard against the wall, and they've already come out and said that's not okay, and they set a precedent for that. I'm okay with NASCAR giving Bell the penalty.
I'm okay with them giving Bell the penalty as well. I think it's a fair penalty. However, I think that when you have such clear race manipulation on the radio from Chevy, Byron shouldn't get through either. I think it was Larson that was 6th in that. Send Larson through. Say, if you're both going to try to manipulate the race, if you're both going to break violations, neither of you get to go. That's personally what I would have done.
Yeah, and I will say, if you're watching this or listening to this, as of right now, NASCAR has not come out with today they've been busy with the court hearing with Front Row and 2311, so they have yet to come out with anything about race manipulation. They haven't said good or bad for Chevy or Toyota, but the penalty for Bell made him the last car on his running lap.
Yeah.
So the last car 1 lap down.
Missed it by 4 points.
Right. So even with that penalty, if they do penalize Chevy and William Byron, which I don't think you can penalize William Byron, he didn't do anything wrong.
It's not Byron's fault. That's the thing, is I think that the issue is it's not Byron's fault, but it's 100% Chevy's fault, and they're doing that for the benefit of William Byron. So in my eyes, it's...
But then you have the argument, okay, Chevy's fault, so let's penalize Chevy, but then you can't put Larson in because he's a Chevy. I know he had nothing to do with it, but you're still putting a Chevy through after penalizing Chevy, so it gets a little sticky.
But I feel like at the end of the day, you have to make a very clear point that there will be no race manipulation allowed. And sure, a Chevy still gets through, but it's not like the one you're trying to game the system for. And it's not always going to be another Chevy waiting in the wings for that. So I think that would stop it. But it's such a thing with, if you don't penalize Chastain and Dillon heavily for this, you can forget about your 100% rule. There is no 100% rule anymore if they are not absolutely thrown the book at.
Well, here's what I think is going to happen. I think manufacturer points will be deducted from Chevy and Toyota. Probably more Chevy because it's 2 drivers involved than Toyota. I think they'll be fined. I think Chastain's team and Dillon's team will be fined. I think the 2311 will be fined, which NASCAR will have no problem finding them right now.
And 2311 will go, okay.
And I think NASCAR is just going to be like, don't do it again. If you do it again, there will be bigger things. But I don't think this is going to change the outlook of the season or the championship for whatsoever.
Have we considered adding Jeff Gordon as a surprise extra contestant, or maybe even giving the 4th playoff spot to Bobby Allison?
Bobby Allison? Yes, but Jeff Gordon would have to run his 15 car that he got screwed out of. And like I think we saw it in the Hendrick shop. They can just put it on the track and go. And he's got to run. And
I would actually love to see that 2015 car versus the next gen cars at Phoenix, because the next gen cars have so much more downforce, but those 2015 cars are just rockets.
I only want Gordon in the car if his race suit has the vest implemented, because that's all. It's all I've seen him in for the last 6 years.
That is funny.
If his vest is not implemented in the race suit, I don't even want to see him in the car.
Yeah, that's fair. But yeah, this whole situation is just a mess. It's shades of Richmond 2013.
Yeah.
When you saw that happen, which basically put Michael Waltrip Racing out of business. And so then Michael Waltrip on Twitter was like, this is all interesting that no one's getting penalized for this, but we'll see if that changes later in the week. if you don't absolutely make it 100% clear that this is not acceptable, it's very dangerous for the integrity.
It'll keep happening. We've seen it with the FIA in Formula One right now. Drivers pushing the limit because they know they can, and kind of just walking all over the FIA until they make them do something. So NASCAR is in the same book. So let us know what you think should be the penalties, or if Bell or Byron should have gone in. I think Byron's safe. I don't think they're going to do anything about the Championship 4. But you mentioned Larson not being in one of the cutoff drivers. 6 wins, double the amount anyone else had. Not racing for the Championship 4, a victim of the playoff format.
I was about to say, welcome to the NASCAR playoffs.
We've talked about. He was probably the favorite. It was the favorite for most of the season to win the championship, and sadly he will not race. Hendrick had a chance to get all 4 drivers in. Bowman disqualified. Now they have a chance to get maybe 3. Then it looked like they might not get any at some point. They did get 1. Byron just snuck in. But if he hadn't gone in, we would have a whole conversation about how Hendrick missed completely. But we don't have to have that conversation because Byron was in, and Elliott and Larson were super close. I know Elliott doesn't look like it points-wise, but, I mean, that race at Las Vegas, if that goes differently and he's not involved in that wreck, I don't think we're even worried. I think he's in.
I think Elliott had one of the most unlucky rounds of 8 that I've seen in a while, from Vegas just getting caught up in that incident. And he missed it by, 53 points or something like that? If he gets stage points in stage 2 and then finishes top 5, that's close to 53 points. So I think it's that he was a lot closer than it's going to look like. Larson as well. Larson just could not catch a break this round either. Felt like this is, I think, some of the worst execution I've seen from Hendrick in the playoffs as far as
a lot of
unforced errors and mistakes.
Elliott more so Larson. Larson, you can argue Larson mistakes. Elliott was kind of just bad. It was bad luck.
Yeah, it was bad luck for Elliott. Then Bowman, the disqualification.
That's 100%
That's
on
on
the team.
Hendrick.
Yep.
All the Larson unforced errors, that's on Hendrick. The only guy for Hendrick that's had a consistent playoffs has been William Byron, and he's in the Final 4.
Yeah, and another driver that's out, Hamlin. He's not winning the championship this year.
The narrative continues.
Another year, he's not going to win it. He had a terrible playoff in general. He was lucky enough to make it in the championship 4. Into the round of 8.
I feel bad for Denny at this point because it feels like there's so much pressure on him to get to that championship 4, to win that championship, not just from NASCAR fans in general, but from himself. Yeah. And now you have all the 23-11 stuff going on. On top of that, you wonder how much he's worrying about that, how much he's not at his best because of that. And I'd love to see him get one before he retires. I think that a Denny Hamlin without a championship would be pretty sad going into probably the Hall of Fame, definitely the Hall of Fame. He's had a Hall of Fame career, but it feels like Mark Martin all over again with Denny Hamlin right now.
But I mean, we'll have to see what he does next year. But speaking of the championship, it's here. Let's talk about it. Phoenix, it's at Phoenix again. Which whatever, we're not going to talk about that discussion right now. But you have your drivers: Tyler Reddick, Joey Logano, Ryan Blaney, William Byron. Points don't matter. The way they got in doesn't matter. Those 4 are in. They don't even have to win the race. They just have to finish above the other 3. Who do you have winning, and does he win the race?
Who do you think I have winning?
The guy on your hat.
I have the guy on my hat winning. I just can't. I have to back my guy. I think my head would maybe lean Blaney, but I gotta back my guy. He had a fast car here in the spring, ran top 5 for a lot of the day before falling off towards the end. I think that they can bring a good car for this race. Reddick is an incredible driver, and I would love to see him get a championship. I grew up a Jimmy Johnson fan, so I've seen championships before, but it's been a while since I've seen.
He's in a weird feeling where he's in a drought.
Just in every sport across the board, I haven't seen any of my sports teams or drivers really win anything of note in a very, very long time.
Well, you mentioned your head kind of wants to go Ryan Blaney. My head and my mouth are going Ryan Blaney. Like we've said, very similar year to last year. Won the championship last year, week in and week out. He's had that car that just comes alive later in the race. And at the championship race, that's probably what you want. It's Phoenix. There's not a lot of cautions. You're not really worried about a caution-heavy race or a late race caution. They do happen, but it's not something you're really worried about like a Daytona or Talladega. So I think Blaney is going to win. I think he wins the race.
I think Reddick wins the race.
Okay, so we both think the championship guy wins the race. I it's hard to argue. Like St. Louis, Blaney had a really good chance to win, should have won, ran out of fuel.
This is where I wish Christopher Bell was here because I would pick Christopher. Like even with Reddick, I think I'd go Christopher Bell anyways because you look at how good he was at Loudon, how good he was at Gateway before the car exploded, how good he is at these flat tracks.
How good he was at Phoenix earlier in the year. I
mean,
but he's not. So it honestly makes my decision easy. Ryan Blaney. I think if not Blaney, honestly Byron. He's been here before.
Guess who I picked at the very start of the year to win the championship?
You did.
I did pick William Byron.
So that would be interesting. Also, next weekend.
And before Joey Logano wins it again.
Yeah, next weekend we're gonna dive back into our picks and see how those aged. I know we did that at the start of the playoffs.
Which one of us had Kyle Busch in the round of 8? I know one of us did.
I had him in the championship 4.
Jeez. Yikes.
Yeah. So
I had Eric Jones in the playoffs. It's okay.
Yeah. We all make mistakes. Anyways. Yep. Blaney, Reddick, those are our 2 guys that we think are going to win. But look out for Byron. Honestly, I don't think Logano has a huge shot.
He's going to win now. He's going to win.
But it's an even year, which I said earlier I didn't believe in. But after Bowman disqualified and he magically got in, you can't not believe in it. So look out for Logano as well because he may cast a spell on somebody. Now, quickly before we move on from NASCAR, Carson Hocevar. He's been in the news a lot. Not positively. A lot of drivers don't really like the way he's racing.
Jeff Burton hates him.
A lot of people, a lot of people are saying like, "Ooh, he's a truck driver in the Cup Series that doesn't belong." I'm not saying he doesn't belong, but he's driving like he's in the Cup Series, in the Truck Series, in the Cup Series, and you just can't do that. What are your thoughts on the way he's driving and how he's treating other drivers on the track?
I think he's fast enough right now that I kind of don't care.
Really?
I like his personality a lot. I'm a big Carson Hocevar guy, and I feel like he definitely needs to clean it up. It reminds me a little bit of early stage Ross Chastain when he first got here. Yep. And you look at Chastain's clean that up, and he's a very solid driver.
He hasn't won as much though.
No, he hasn't. But I think Hocevar is going to learn that with time. He's only 21 years old. Yeah. And think of like some of the better drivers in the sport when they were 21. Like 21-year-old Kyle Busch was not driving respectfully at all. A lot of these super good young talents come in. I think Hocevar has potential to be one of the better drivers in the sport if he can clean this up. And I would rather have a guy that has the raw pace and maybe has to learn how to not boot people out of the way than a guy that's super respectful and slow.
Yeah, too passive. Right. Hocevar is going to be a rookie of the year this year without question.
Another thing I predicted.
That is true.
Mr. Josh Berry over here.
I think, look, it was a safe pick.
No, it wasn't. We always knew Stewart Haas was going to be terrible.
We didn't know they would be this terrible. A lot of stuff came out mid-season.
I said they were all going to miss the playoffs, and I was robbed by a late Darlington win by Chase Briscoe.
But I think the broadcast said it best. With a guy like Michael McDowell coming in, who's been in the league a while, he's going to be like, hey, it'll be good.
He's a platoon bat.
Yeah, he's your bench veteran guy. So I think that'll work out well for Hocevar, and I do think he'll settle down a little bit. And like you said, I think he has potential to be one of the better drivers. Hopefully, I think he's going to stay with Chevy. Hopefully, that's kind of what they want to do. Maybe take over for Kyle Busch as RCR or something.
As soon as a Hendrick driver leaves, he's going into that seat.
Yeah, either Hendrick or RCR, whoever leaves first.
I hope not RCR. Don't kill his career like that.
Well, Hendrick has a young core.
Honestly, think to yourself, over the next 3 years, would you rather be at Spire or RCR? And I think the answer is Spire right now.
Maybe, honestly. You may be right about that. As soon as they can figure out how to
RCR has given me
burn the 7 car and make sure that
we need to exercise the demons from that thing
away from it.
But the RCR right now is such like 2016, 2017 Roush Fenway vibes. It's just all nepotism and yes men, and they can't do anything correctly. And poor Kyle Busch is just stuck in the middle of it.
Yeah, but Kyle Busch will run a race next year. And on that note, that's all we have for our pre-championship episode. I'm excited to see how this ends. This has been a crazy season.
I'm very stressed to see how this ends.
Honestly, this has been one of the crazy seasons. Yeah, I think the championship race may be the most boring race we've seen all year. Even more than Richmond and the...
well, it's Phoenix.
Exactly. But who knows? So... make sure y'all tune into the championship race and watch us next Tuesday when we break down the championship race and see all what happened, dive into our playoff picks, all the good stuff.
I'm either really happy or really sad.
And then we'll hibernate on NASCAR for a little bit until court. We get to talk about court cases for the first time in GTD. Yeah.
Welcome to GTD Suits Edition.
Legal lawsuit, the People's Court. But yeah, that's all I have for y'all. Make sure to tune to our other episodes. They will be out as well this week and Thursday. See y'all later.